Well, there's no rift between Agbaje and me. All that happened in the past is gone. Well, the Yorubas say if you continue to nurse grudges with the people, you will not have anybody to call your friend. The issues of the past belong to the past. There's no rift between us. End of quote. With those words coming from the former Deputy National Chairman of the PDP, Olabode George, who, well, we can really say 2018 is a year of the forgiving spirit after we had earlier witnessed President Obasanjo do same with Atiku Abubakar. Well, again, when one kitchen gets burned, another must be opened, and so the son-in-law to Governor Rochas Okorocha of Imo State, Uche Nwosu, has finally dumped the All Progressives Congress APC for Action Alliance. Nwosu said that injustice, impunity, and lack of respect for party's constitution forced him out of the APC. Now, what's the political reading like in Nigeria? Stove on, pot on fire. It's cooking time. As Politicals to you, I'm Sulaiman Aled. Welcome. Who is a better cook? Now, the older politicians or the younger ones? Now, speaking of which, the young and very young ones are still holding out, politically speaking, and they've been dishing out food for thoughts for us all. Now, Political Stew is leading the way to featuring them, and I mean all of them. Sludge of Stew. What are they all cooking? You can get to watch us live on the go at tvcnews.tv/live streaming. We're also live on YouTube, TVC News Nigeria Live, and youtube.com/Political Stew. You can also watch us live on Facebook, and remember to download the Political Stew app on Google Play Store and follow the news and the show on politics. Hey, we also have Political Stew right on the iOS. Now we'll take a moment. When we come back, we'll look at what exactly is happening. We'll open the lid and have a peep and a taste. Now, geography is one of those subjects in high school that actually left many of us wondering when it comes to map reading. Now, political map reading is what we're trying to do at this moment, and looking at what exactly is happening as we move towards 2019. The pot boils for a whole lot of states and even some other national political parties. Now, looking at this is what we'll be doing. I'm being joined by Liborous Oshoma, who's an attorney at law. Good to have you join us this evening.
My pleasure.
Well, a whole lot is happening, and quite frankly, starting off the show, I talked about what's happening in Imo State, and the son-in-law of the governor of that state has just moved, and he described the party with such words as used earlier on. But again, let's talk about 2019 as we move? Perhaps maybe there are some semblance of what we saw in 2015 leading up to that election. Do you think, to start with, that we have seen the end of defections as we move towards the election?
Not really. Yeah, because I sometimes wonder if that phrase, "He who the gods want to kill, they first make mad," if it is used to describe, Nigerian politicians only. I begin to wonder how come they don't see these things. Is it that they don't have analysts that sits down to analyze the issues for them, look at the numbers, and then permutations, or that they so believe in, their ability or the psychophancy around them that they are so blinded to the reality on ground? If you take Ogun State, for example, in 2011, the outgoing governor then, Otuba Gbenga Daniel, wanted his acolytes to take over the reign of the states. He did everything, he was in PDP, he did everything possible, and he was denied the tickets. He defected into, I think it was PPA then. He defected with some associate. Otuba Gbenga Daniel remained in PDP. And at the end of the day, that was how Amosu won, that seat, because the House PDP then was divided against itself. And fast forward to 2018, Amosu also wanted his acolytes, also wants his acolyte to, take over from him. And with what is playing out, I told somebody, I said, I think he would go back, look at what event that played out in 2011, and he would not defect. But just recently, I saw him defecting, And then Amosu said, well, he's going to work against the candidate of the APC in
the state.
In the state. And I said, look, this man should just be advised that a house divided against himself will not stand. Or is it a case?
Sorry, Mr. Oshoma. Now you have just raised the issue happening in Ogun State. Now let's look at what, this
I'm going to Imo because the same thing playing out in Imo.
Okay, now go ahead, then we'll come back.
So I asked myself, or is it a case of he who the gods wants to kill, they first make mad? And if you go to Imo, Rochas, thanks to the intervention of Oshomole, Rochas was almost gone in the party. From the Congress, the first Congress that was held in APC, the instruments, the structures of the party were taken over by the Madumeres, the Zunasors, the candidate, the APC candidates now. All of them, they came together, including Ararome. They were all together. They hijacked the structures of the party from Rochas. And it was almost declared a persona non grata in his own party. But with the coming into office of Oshomole, Oshomole had to order another Congress in the state, and that Congress, it was almost a fait accompli for Rochas, and he was able to grab back what was taken from him. And that saw also some people, like Arome also left the party, went to ABGA, and some defected to PDP, and then some remain. And now, because he's not able to have his way with his son-in-law, you see him remain in APC, and then his son-in-law defecting into another party, thereby creating a strong divide in his own party. And you expect that the house divided against itself will stand or will win an election?
I've always heard this word, they talk about, working against your party, and they say it's a big crime, politically speaking, in almost all political parties. And they say when you work against your party, you have done something, you have committed a sin against your party. So for
sacrilege.
So for some of these governors, specifically the two you just mentioned, Ogun State is openly saying, I will work for the victory of President Muhammadu Buhari, but I will work against my own party in my state. Isn't that what they say? Well, it's sacrilegious when it comes to party politics.
See, even in Nigeria party politics, ambition is sacrilegious. If you remember, in the Greek city-state, Julius Caesar was killed for being ambitious. was killed for presumably being ambitious. It was alleged, even though he denied it, even though Mark Antonio denied it also. And here, even some of these political godfathers, if you are an associate, you can be sacrificed politically for being ambitious. And that's why you hear them, they wait until they are asked to come go, or to use their term, I've been asked to come and go, or I've been anointed. Otherwise, you saw what happened in Lagos. Those that were not anointed had to stay back. But even though there's a semblance of, a direct primaries. But in this case now, it shows that the house, the entire house, the party itself is a structure that is divided against itself. Because a situation where a sitting governor will sit down, open his mouth and say, I will work against the party in the gubernatorial election, and the party is helpless. Because you have a presidential candidate that you're desperate to return. And so once that happens, it's like, okay, look, if we discipline this person now, it might affect his working for the presidential candidate. So let's find a way of accommodating him and managing him. And that also will not encourage discipline.
That brings us to the electorate.
So quickly, you now find out it's about personal ambition. So if my personal ambition or my personal issues are not met here, I can always
quickly bring the electorate in. Sorry, I had to cut you there, but bring the electorate in.
Also, you now find that the most laughable part of it is the fact that you look at these people and you ask yourself, what do they take the electorate for? As a bunch of zombies, you just park somewhere and you say, for governorship, go this way. For presidency, go this way. So where is the room of ideology here? And then you forget also that the electorate are going to, in some cases, they are either carried on by the activities of the party or by the man at the top, at the center in the party. Or in some cases, you have electorate that are illiterate. All they want to identify with is the logo of the party. And so you get them confused in some cases. And then, where's the room of campaign in all of these issues? So how do you reconcile a situation where you do not subscribe to the candidate of your party at the state level, and yet you want people to believe in a candidate of that same party at the national level? How do you reconcile all of that? And so it also creates a confusion for the electorate. And that's why in some cases, like I told you, happened in Ogun in 2011, the people would just resort to, okay, let's go the way it's been. And so at the end of the day, it's either they go the opposition way or they go the way of the party in power. Still
within the electorate. So it will seem as if, now let's talk about the numbers now. How many? Because sometimes political parties, they tell you that they have XY numbers, members. Knowing full well at the end of the day, when you go out on election day, you have actually also monitored elections. When you go out on election day, what you find on the queue, on those lines, are people who are not even card-carrying members of such political parties. So how come that when they say this is where they're headed, that look, I don't want my people, use advisedly here, I don't want my people to vote for candidate A on this election, but to also vote for this XY candidate, because now it's about candidates and not about political parties. So how do they succeed in swaying votes at the end of the day?
You can only achieve that in places like Lagos, where you have metropolitan, you have more educated voters than in any other state. So maybe Abuja will come close.
So education is important in
very,
this.
very important. That, like I told you, sometimes it's difficult for even the candidates, the electorate, to identify the candidates. In some cases, they just flow with the flag of the party or the logo of the party. But talking about, the numbers, take Oyo, for example. In 2015, you had expected that Ladoja, Alao Akala, and Teslim now would work together. But for personal ambition, for personal reasons, they decided to split, the votes. And each of them thinking that they will go the whole hog. At the end of the day, if you put the votes of all these candidates together, collectively, that would have surpassed the number of the APC. And so that's why I said, this assumption that, oh, we have the numbers. You think, do you have the numbers in your locality? The same way the other strong man in his localities have the same number. And so at the end of the day, you're going to split the numbers. And then now coming to the issue, that's the focal point primarily. Before you begin to talk about, oh, I will tell them to vote for this candidate at the governorship, and at the presidential one, we'll vote for this candidate. You forget that at the presidential one, you can come together because you probably, have a common purpose. But for the governorship, it is more difficult because you are splitting your own house.
How can we have the electorate here? Because it's very important. If you say education is very important in the electoral process, it then means that we have quite a handful of uneducated voters.
Mind you, now you have about
and 95. It will seem as if the politicians are also cashing in on such deficiencies.
You have about 95 political parties, and then in some cases, in some cases you are going to have about 70-something political parties on the ballot. And so, how popular are the logo of some of these political parties that you're defecting to?
And how similar are some of them?
Are some of them as well?
Because you run out of insignias and symbols to the extent that some may also look like the other.
Yes, but in this case, the issue is you find a situation where take the logo of the PDP, for example, the umbrella is popular. The APC, you have the broom. During campaigns, these are insignia that are easily identifiable, not because they are popular, even the cock is popular, but because this is what they are used to. And so the moment you have 3 months to election and you move to a party that has, how do I call it now, a candle or a pen.
Or a lamp.
Or a lamp.
A lantern like
exactly, a lantern. And, for the illiterate ones, it becomes very difficult for you to begin to explain to all of them. Mind you, campaigns here usually are just like rallies where, the politicians come, artists are hired and then they talk to people. So
issues are still not being discussed.
So issues are still not being addressed. And so when you get to the state level, you have ordinarily before now, you're all together in one party. And now a chunk of you have moved to one obscure party somewhere or one fringe party. And then the other chunk remains in the ruling party. And mind you also, there's a major opposition party that is trying to drag from some members from amongst you, And some members also who are aggrieved also will pull out and go the other way. So what you're doing in your own party is you're creating a big void. You're creating a big divorce in the party. And so there is no way that you're going to win with the kind of illiteracy that we have at those levels, and then coupled with the confusion in most cases. As we speak now, I had expected that by now INEC should be engaged in massive voters education and awareness. Also, the National Orientation Agency should be doing its thing by now, to educate voters. But all of these, we'll wait till maybe 2 weeks to the election because they say they don't have money. And so it would take, a tall order for you to move few months to election to a new party and expect to make inroads. So that's the problem, the major crisis some of these people who are defecting now are going to have. But I had expected also, and it's the same thing for some of the presidential candidates who are, people will know them by face, but when it comes to election on that day, mind you, what is on the ballot is the logo of the political party. And not the faces that you know.
So you think in addressing this, would you want to see a system whereby the electoral umpire, I'm talking about INEC now, will start to put the candidates, faces on the ballot?
Because it is established, legally speaking, that the mandate belongs to the political parties. It is the party that feeds candidates, and so it is the logo of the political party.
That should be on the ballot.
That should be on the ballot. And our education had not gotten to that level where if, the logo is on the party, on the ballot, everybody, would be able to identify.
Then how do you help? How do you help people? How do you help? Sorry to cut you there. How do you help even people who claim to be educated, like you and I? And we know that that we have a whole lot of candidates, to the extent that I can't. Probably I don't remember your party, but I know your face. And when I get to the polling booth on election day, how do I know if I'm to vote for X, Y, Z?
That's where you need to also identify the candidate. If you say this is your candidate, you should know the party's flag that he's flying, and so that's why, for me, really, we make a mockery of democracy. We make a mockery of democracy in the sense that, I see some people, few days to election, few months to election, you see them all of a sudden, everybody agitating. We now see the presidency as a big local government. Everybody wants to be president. Even those who ordinarily should be vying for local government chairman wants to be president. And so what we do, what we have reduced it to, it's a mockery. And at the end of the day, even people that their supporters can't even identify their party on the ballot paper or wants to be president. And in some cases, in an attempt to identify, you have issues of, void votes, where the thumbprint is not properly on the box created for that, political party. And that's why some people are even of the view that with 90-something political party, the ballot paper, it's going to be, it's going to be cumbersome. And so I had expected that with what is happening, I had expected that most of these candidates would be able to come together, form an alliance to be able to give, the major political parties a run for their money. But this idea, this attitude, this selfishness that we have, everybody thinking that you will go the whole hog, even though you are just known within your community. We're thinking that, yes, since there's a political party to fly flag, my name should be on the ballot. At the end of the day, you confuse the electorate more. But if we have, take for example, you have 6, strong candidates on the ballot, so that also reduces the stress of the voters in beginning to look for, the choices. But when you have 70-something candidates on the ballot, by the time you look at the first 10, you just say, what, I am tired of looking. Let me just, look out for the one that I know. And then, boom.
It was seem as if we saw this coming when we said too many cooks. Now, looking at 2019 election, it's unprecedented, as you have just noticed. It's the first time we're getting to see a lot of people, giving a shot at the presidency, not at any other office, but the presidency. Now, for young Nigerians, even younger ones, what do you think is missing in their aspiration to seek political office in the country at the moment?
First and foremost, what's missing is involvement. A lot of us are not involved in the process. And so that's why we rather stay aloof and wait to be directed. And when elections are around the corner, you see we're struggling between APC, PDP, and in some cases, we reduce the issues to insult. But look at Pakistan, for example. The president of Pakistan, when he retired from cricket, it took him 15 years to pass a message. He started going around spreading a message that it can be better. We need to fight corruption. We need to make Pakistan better. Look at Obama. 3 years before Obama became the presidential candidate, he was already going around passing a message of hope. Yes, we can. And if you read his book, The Audacity of Hope, it all stated there were times when he would, visit some churches in some remote community and then apply to address the congregation at the end of service, only for the pastors in some cases to forget that there's somebody who wants to talk with them. But we're not used to that here. We sit back in the comfort of our homes, or in some cases in America, in London, and then 6 months to election, we suddenly wake up and say, we want to be president. You come down here, you think you can force your way down the mind of the people.
That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like, even at the governorship level. Like, I've had cause to interact. Take somebody like Jimmy Agbaje, for example. Anywhere I go, I always say this, because after the election, one would have expected, being a face, that's the one you can readily relate to. Being a face of a major opposition, one would have expected that, he keeps the tempo. You interact the issues as they come. The land use charge, what happened? The, the dustbin that suddenly became the face of Lagos.
You're talking about the dirty Lagos
there. The dirty Lagos, the traffics and all of that. One would have expected that, there should be, what Alhaji Lai Mohammed was doing when they were in opposition. He kept them consistently, on their toe. But all these things, you hardly see them. Some of these people, there should be preparation. Let the people know that it can be done better and how it can be done better. At some point, the people are going to be the ones to say, look, this man consistently had been telling us how to do it better. Now that we know this is where he belongs, we want to go there. They say if you sing good tunes, you preach good messages, and you speak the truth, if you like, build your house in the thick of forest, the world will create a path to it. But what we do, we sit down alone, young people, and then when election is around the corner, that's when some people wake up. How about those that fought for the not too young to run bill? What became of them after the visit to the president? So one would have expected one of these obscure political parties that is not known. You start from there. This is your position on every issues as they come. On insecurity, on infrastructure. You consistently, your members hold symposiums with people at the grassroots. You put your contributions together to ensure that consistently you're on the mind of the people. And when you build that momentum, in 4 years, it becomes easy for people to reckon and identify with you. That is why people can reckon with somebody like Obieze Kwesili, even though she came out a little too late. But you can relate with her. You can relate with what she stands for.
When you talk about relating, with the people, again, another thing has to do with where you live as a representative of the people. Now you mentioned President Obama a while ago, and at this moment, he's back in Chicago, and he's living amongst the people, and everything he has or he owns is around the state. Now, how does it feel when we have people who represent people, for instance, in Nigeria, and you're the representative of the people, you don't live or you don't even have your house within that senatorial or locality?
It's worse at the local government level.
Even the local government people, they also do that.
In some cases, the local government chairman lives in the state capital, and he travels to the local government once in a while. And also, thanks to the fact that every now and then they are summoned by the state governors.
So what's the logic? What's the logic behind you representing the people? You don't believe it is befitting enough to live amongst them.
It is not just amongst the politicians. In America, I have a friend who lives in Douglasville. He can't take his children out of Douglasville to school in another.
Absolutely, that's it. That's how it is.
Because if the moment you take them out of, you don't pay taxes in a community and your children go school in another community. It means you don't believe in a community, and also it means you're going to take the slot of somebody else. But here, you can live in Bagada, and your children's school in VI, and everything about you is in Victoria Island, and you say it's for convenience. And then someday, you want to become local government chairman. All your life you have lived in Bagada, and now you suddenly remember that, or you're told that, okay, look, Bagada slot is filled. Don't you go to Lagos Island or
then you come to Alimosho,
or you go to Alimosho. That's what it's because the people are not involved until we become involved. We get involved in the process. That's where we now begin to identify, are you one of us? And then also the kind of politics we play. You find out in some cases very soon also we'll have people without identity. You live in Lagos, you want to contest for election. That's when you remember that, because I am not from Lagos, I need to go back to Edo. You get to Auchi, and you are told, this man is a Lagos man. We don't know him in Auchi. So he's a Lagos man.
I think.
And then you come to Lagos, you cannot run for a political office because
so you're
you're
nowhere.
Lagosian. So you are nowhere.
So I think it's a fine place for us to rest it, and I hope that, well, as we move towards 2019, I should be able to call you back again, Liborous Oshoma, an attorney at law, for us to discuss this. Well, we'll take a moment. When we'll come back, we'll be having a conversation with a very young Nigerian, and it looks to me that he's the youngest going for that particular office in Lagos.